Our top focus, the rift between Israel and its staunchest ally, the United States, seems to be growing day by day. Now, at the heart of the conflict is the Rafah invasion, while Israel has decided to go ahead with the ground assault in the southern Gaza city. Washington is increasingly becoming frustrated about Israel's decision. The U.S. says a ground operation in Rafah will be a mistake. It has demanded a credible plan from Israel that will protect civilians. The U.S. President Joe Biden has said that at this point, Israel should agree to a ceasefire and flood the besieged strip with aid for the next 6 to 8 weeks. He further added Israel should allow regional countries to distribute aid in the Gaza region.
On Rafah, no, we do not have a date for any Rafah operation, at least one that's been communicated to us by the Israelis. On the contrary, what we have is an ongoing conversation with Israel about any Rafah operation.
The U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken also said Israel has not informed Washington of any specific date for the Rafah offensive. He further said officials of both the countries are in contact with each other to ensure any kind of military operation in Rafah does not harm its civilians. Remember, over 1.4 million displaced Gazans are still present in Rafah. Now, differences between Israel and the U.S. have been growing due to the worsening humanitarian situation in Gaza and the lack of progress in the ceasefire talks. According to Hamas, over 33,000 people have been killed and nearly 75,000 are injured in Gaza so far. International efforts to broker a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas continues in Cairo this week. Hamas and the Israeli delegation are participating in the hostage deal talks as well. Hamas says the Israeli proposal on a ceasefire does not meet the demands of Palestinian militant factions, but it will give its response after studying the offer. Egyptian and Qatari mediators in Cairo handed the proposal to Hamas leaders. Meanwhile, there is fighting in Gaza on the ground still ongoing. The Israeli airstrikes hit central and southern Gaza on Tuesday. This included an attack on the house of the Al-Nusayrat that killed 14 people. Other airstrikes were reported from Deir al-Bala in central Gaza and Rafah in the far south. And for the very latest on the situation between the U.S. and Israel and the Rafah offensive, our correspondent Jody Cohen sent us this report.
In an interview filmed last week, President Biden suggested that Prime Minister Netanyahu should call for a 6 to 8 week ceasefire without referring to Hamas releasing hostages. However, the Biden administration has now clarified that a ceasefire should be tied in with hostages being freed. Hours before the interview aired, Secretary of State Blinken suggested that Hamas has been presented with a very serious offer for an extended pause in the fighting, which would enable both a return of hostages and more aid to be distributed around Gaza. Blinken said he was astounded by the world's silence when it comes to Hamas and that more pressure should be placed on Hamas to accept the deal. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Netanyahu is thought to be under pressure domestically as well as internationally, with growing anti-government rallies and pressure from his coalition to restore deterrence. And it remains to be seen what Netanyahu's next move would be. This is Jody Cohen for WION World as One.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.